Hey everybody, welcome to our 6th episode of our show. Once again, I'm Felipe Casado.
And I'm Michael McIntyre, and this is Sports Talk with Mike and Felipe. And we're first going to start out with the MLB, and what we decided to do is every other show we're going to talk about a new division in the MLB, and we're going to focus on the teams. So this for our first episode, for doing that, we're going to talk about the AL East. So Felipe, in terms of the 5 teams, Toronto, you got New York, Baltimore, even Tampa Bay, and Boston, who do you think has the best chance of winning the division?
I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Okay.
Then closely followed by the Baltimore Orioles. It's going to be, I think the 3-game range, and they're going to be battling back and forth throughout the season. They're also going to be, then number 3, I'm going to have the Yankees. I just don't think they have enough young talent and overall talent to compete with these Blue Jays and these Orioles. Then number 4, the Rays. I just don't think they have it as they did these last couple of years. And then finally, number 5, the Boston Red Sox.
Well, listen, we've seen throughout the trading season and through the off season that Toronto has really taken some good players and putting them on their team. You look at R.A. Dickey, Melky Cabrera, Mark Burley, through the perfect game against Chicago. You have all these new players coming to Toronto, but I'm going to have to disagree with you that Toronto is going to win the AL East. I think they'll be a wild card seed. I still think the Yankees have a great chance of winning the AL East just because of what they have been accomplishing the last couple of years. Great managing staff by Joe Girardi, and you have, Derek Jeter, if he comes back, which we don't know. You have Robinson Cano, you have, Granderson, you have all these players that still have it in them, that still have the gas going. They're going to just go through the division. Of course, this is one of the hardest divisions in MLB, right?
Yeah.
But, I still think that the Yankees have a good chance of doing the AL East.
You make a good point, Michael. They still have a lot of those great players, like you mentioned, Cano, Teixeira, and Granderson to throw more out there. But, I just don't. Right? They're all aging.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as young as they used to be. Some of them are kind of a little bit past their prime, I think. And I think Baltimore and Toronto are the new AL East. I have a little bit of hate going against the Yankees now because I just don't like the Yankees, but I really do think that if Toronto builds chemistry with all these players, they're going to be really hard to beat. Of course they're going to still have to play great baseball against the Yankees. The Yankees don't count them out. And Baltimore, they've proven that young talent can succeed even in this AL East. And with Adam Jones, a healthy Nick Markakis, and Chris Davis, they got a lot of RBIs, and I think they're just going to be a little bit too much for these Yankees.
Well, I'm going to agree with you. I think the dark horse, and especially in this division, is the Baltimore Orioles. If the Orioles do what they did last season and have just a great and magnificent season as we saw, then I think the Yankees and definitely Toronto are going to have the toughest time against them when it comes to the division. And we're going to see what happened last year, which is a 3-way tie or a 3-way horse race to the end of the season.
And don't forget about those Tampa Bay Rays. I do have them at number 4, but you got to watch out. They've got Evan Longoria and David Price, the Cy Young last year. Don't count this team out. They're very very dangerous. They've got a lot of pop in their team. Although they've been wild cards of late, they can be very dangerous. And Boston, they made signings to Napoli and Victorino and Ryan Dempster, but I really don't think they're going to be in this race. So now we're going to shoot right into the NBA. As the trade deadline just wrapped up. No really big names were mentioned this year. It's some consider this as one of the worst trade deadlines to have ever happened in the NBA. Michael, what could have been the biggest names in this?
Well, there was rumors swirling that even Dwight Howard could have been traded from the Los Angeles Lakers.
Rajon Rondo too.
It's been very disappointing, I think, in terms of the trade deadline, and the reason is there are just the players that were traded weren't they weren't huge acquisitions or huge deficits that they took away, but I think what is happening now in the NBA is you are looking at teams like the Miami Heat that are just rolling. As we watched yesterday, the Heat beat my Chicago Bulls. Now Heat are on a 9-game winning streak. But teams are also slumping, like the Chicago Bulls, who have, in my opinion, are losing their mojo. Indiana is another huge team, is winning 2 straight, and are going to play the Heat soon, which should be a very big game. What do you think about the Pacers and going up against the Heat?
The Heat right now are pretty unstoppable. I believe, there's very few teams that even face a threat against them, and one of them are the Indiana Pacers. They rocked the Heat last time. It's going to be interesting to see how the Heat bounce back. They are at home, so that sets a little bit of an advantage, but it's going to be, again, interesting to see how they can come back from that terrible loss. And, another team the Heat might be a little bit concerned about are those New York Knicks. They're up in the Eastern Conference, and they're pretty dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Well, 2 teams that I also want to talk about are the San Antonio Spurs, who are the senior citizen class, who are just on fire, as well as the New York Knicks, as Felipe said. I think when it comes down to it, you're looking at a Eastern Conference finish with Miami on top, Indiana second, maybe even New York at third. Just depends on if the Knicks can capitalize and finish going hot for the rest of the season.
Michael, going back to what you said before on how the NBA is shaping into a league where half the teams are powerhouse teams with, their own individual big threes, and the other half are just, teams that are pretty mediocre and they're going to have to deal with it. I remember in the last Summer Olympic Games, they were interviewing Doc Rivers, the coach of the Boston Celtics, and he was saying the same exact thing, that, these teams, Sacramento, New Orleans, Charlotte, they're just going to have to cope.
Yeah.
Because some of these teams just have more money, and they're just going to be able to buy these players like, let's say, LeBron, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and the original big 3 of the Celtics. So as usual, what comes with the NBA is NCAA hoops, so that's what we're going to talk about right now. A strange top 4 this year, as you don't have the regular Duke, Syracuse, Kansas. It's number 1 Indiana, number 2 the U Miami, number 3 Gonzaga, and number 4 Michigan State. So Michael, why do you think it's like this year, not the regular Duke in Syracuse?
Well, it's interesting. Number 1 teams are falling, and we haven't really seen this for a while, but that's the beauty of college hoops, where every week something surprising happens. So let's take a look at Indiana first. Just this week they beat Michigan State, number 4 team in the land, which will move that number 4 seed around, and I assume Syracuse or Kansas will move into that number 4 spot. But when you look at Miami, I think Miami is one of the more surprising teams, of course, because you never really see them in the top 10 of the hoops. So they are an impressive undefeated in the ACC, and this is an ACC with the University of North Carolina and Duke. They've beaten UNC twice. They've beaten Duke once, but they have to play Duke in Durham in the following weeks. But when you also take a look at another team, Gonzaga, with the best Division I record, undefeated in their conference WCC, and with star players like Kelly Olynyk, who has been named to the Wooden Award finalist category, as well as Elias Harris Jr., who is also a fantastic player on the court. Gonzaga looks unstoppable, and I'm happy to announce that ESPN has finally put Gonzaga as a number 1 seed in their bracketology. Now this is, of course, tentative. We'll have to see what happens when it comes to selection Sunday. But it just goes to show that you may not play in a strong division, right? But you still have a powerful team that any team should be worried about when you take a look at Gonzaga, and even Miami too.
Yeah.
Don't count them out.
And the thing I want to say is, I've been hearing about people, talking about are these top 4 really the stronghold of, the regular top 4? Are they really going to live up to those expectations to be the top 4 in the NCAA? And, some people are, a little bit, these guys are going to be up here, but they're going to fall easily. And, I'm going to have to disagree with them because, Miami has shown they've beat out a powerhouse team at University of North Carolina twice. They beat Duke more than 30 points, and this team is hot. So is Gonzaga. Like you said, not many people look at Gonzaga, but they're a really good team, and even Indiana.
Well, and also the simple explanation of record. Indiana and Miami and Gonzaga both come in every week and win games. And Indiana does it big at home. Gonzaga also does it huge at home when you look at these teams. Just the reason why they're up there is because they win.
Yeah.
I just want to give a Big Money Mike shout out to the Chicago Blackhawks of the NHL. This team is amazing. They are Stanley Cup potential. When you have two fantastic forwards like Marian Hossa and Jonathan Toews, you are unstoppable. This Chicago Blackhawks team has beaten Vancouver, San Jose, the two top in the Western Conference. They've lost in 3 shutouts but have an amazing 15-0-3 record. Best record in the NHL right now. Do not look over these Chicago Blackhawks because they will come back to bite your butt in the Stanley Cup Finals.
But not against Vancouver. Well, that wraps up our show for today. Continue to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We love the support and we really appreciate it. So, I'm Felipe Caicedo.
And I'm Michael McIntyre, and this has been Sports Talk with Mike and Felipe.